Industrial Revolution 4.0. And I think what he's going to talk to you today is something which is extremely important for the country if we want to break into a digital era. It is our national bodies need to be very digital, and he is a leading person for that. So I think this must have kept, I'm sure this would have raised your expectations and your excitement. So I won't take much time. I hand you over to Mr. Akhilesh Srivastav. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rajiv. And you had said a lot of words, but that's anyway, that's part of work and things which we do. And sometimes it clicks, but still we keep on trying. Thank you very much for the nice words you had. It's a rather my privilege, and I feel honored that I am associated with ISB as alumni and talking to the bright young minds here who are the future of the country. So, and it's indeed an honor for me again, I would say, to interact with it, share some of my work experience or industry experience, as well as what is the thought process, how things can be quickly changed. Because if you want to really make a dent, make a change in the system, in my opinion, the technology is the only way. Otherwise, you keep on making the policies. Probably our constitution is the most voluminous constitution, but the when it comes to the enforcement of the things, there we lack. And to train the people in enforcement or actually doing the things on ground, we require something like help of technology, which is a great enabler. And during my talk, I will be discussing the case study of NHAI, where you can see how technology has transformed the working thought process, the organizational outlook, and the best results it's yielding. I'm just coming from the parliament. We had a question there. Even the most of the member of parliaments were praising the work being done by NHAI. And in fact, the last week only, I will be sharing in more detail subsequently also. In 2 weeks back, we clocked 534 kilometers of national highway construction in a single week. In 1 week, from 8 January to 15 January, we constructed something around 534 kilometers of national highways, whereas our usual construction used to be some ranging between 3,000 to 4,000 or something like that in a year. So this is how technology makes a great, pushes you for a great leap and advances the things. Anyway, I will be just sharing some one of my just a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll just start from here. Yeah. So let me talk today about the digital construction management, the core thing which I'm doing it here. I'll be talking to you from a different paradigm, having a different thought process, how technology is going to change, not a stereotype things. I will be connecting you with what industry is doing, what is going to be the future, and if somebody is related with the construction industry as well as technology, IR 4.0 technologies, what is there in the offering, and how we can jointly transform the things. Before that, let's have a construction industry landscape, understand how much, what is the size of construction industry, and why government of India is putting a lot of emphasis on this. you must have heard in the budget, the maximum emphasis was given to the infrastructure sector. Roughly 120,000 crore rupees is allotted to highway sector, 110,000 crore is allotted to the railways. Similarly, some similar money has been given to many infrastructure, the water pipelines, the gas pipelines, and put together, this is something around 5 lakh crore the government is spending. Because this has, infrastructure actually acts as a growth engine. When we talk about the masses and the country like India, which is having a huge population, where the skilled number of persons are far lesser than the unskilled or semi-skilled person. So in a construction industry, majority of them get absorbed, get the employment and other things. But if you go with the automobiles or the other manufacturing sector, the requirement becomes more specific to a skilled or highly skilled person. So that's the reason, as of now, just recovering from the post-COVID, or in our bid to recover as quickly as possible from the last year impact or COVID impact on the economy. This is the best thing to be done. And globally, it's something around 10 trillion US dollars industry. And the way it is growing globally, and not only India, which is spending huge now in infrastructure, as in our budget, in most of the advanced countries, the developed countries, as well as the other developing countries, they are also putting a lot of money into this. So what is expected by 2024-25, roughly this will go to 20 trillion US dollar. That's contributing nearly 16% to the global GDP, which is, as of now, is 6% globally and 10 to 11 for us. But globally, this may cross 15%. Sorry. Sorry. When we talk about the industry, any industry, our primary focus for any project is to deliver the project within the budget, within the time, adhere to the quality and the statutory requirements, as well as the financial sanity. And once it is constructed or when it is in use, there has to be an efficient O&M operation and maintenance. And now, if we so this is a broad, in a big way, what these are the three things which we primarily focus. And now, when we go actually on ground, we find those three simple keywords are very difficult to implement on ground. And as a result, this is the actual scenario happens on ground. You will find majority of the projects, almost half of the projects, are delayed. And they're not delayed just by a few days or a few hours or a week. They are delayed by years. If I say that approximately 25% of these projects are delayed by more than 2 years, and there is no likely rate of completion in the near future, that's I'm not exaggerating. Similarly, and the very low technology adoption in the construction industry. This, if I talk specific to the construction industry, and that is the reason this industry has been suffering. The operational costs are very high, construction cost is very high, and the most of the time our real estate is one of the example where you can the house in certain areas in Mumbai or Delhi or even Chandigarh, Chennai, are costlier than certain if you buy a house in a US. The reason is first is the land cost, of course, and the second is the very high construction cost which we incur because of low adaptability of low technology in the construction. And of course, I need not to further elaborated that the impact of construction industry on environment is tremendous. None of the sectors, the automobile, the banking or financial sectors, has so much impact on directly on environment than construction sector itself, because it consumes nearly 50% of the global steel, whereas the manufacturing is less than 20, automobile is much less than that. 3 billion tons of raw material. You find almost half of the rivers in the northern India, the now sand mining has been stopped because we have drained it. It has become a flood prone area. Shortage of similarly the land cost is so high exorbitantly. You sell an acre of land in Chandigarh and you buy 10 acres of land in California. That's the cost of the exorbitant. And emission, of course, that we contribute a lot of construction industry. Then there are many other challenges when we come to the implementation actually on ground. Though we have a very large population, and I say, I mean, when we talk 130 crore peoples we have, but actually the skilled people, when you go for, are far less. The reasons are many. The academic curriculum can be one of the reason. Less skilling can be another reason. There are many reasons which can be. But when we execute a work on ground, and probably you must be agree with me because you're all working in various organizations at a senior positions. You must have found the gap in the understanding what you're trying to say and how people are understanding. That's the and all these leads to very low productivity, and the urbanization pace of India is exorbitant, and that it should be. I must say that as of now, we are around 60% people are living in the villages or the small towns. As it happens for any developed country, more and more people migrate to the cities. Uh, but our city should be capable enough to absorb so many people who are migrating every day. 2 lakh people are migrating to nearby city. The city infrastructure should be capable of taking it. So what we have seen in NHAI, we conceived a project, say today, that this lane, this highway is to be widened from 2 lane to 4 lane, or 4 lane to 6 lane highway. The planning takes 2 years, then execution takes 3 years, and by the time, and 1 or 2 years normal delay. So by 7 to 8 years, when we actually construct a highway, or similarly, same thing happens with the housing also. When you go to use it, the population has increased so much that it becomes narrow. Now you have to expand it on, add more lanes to it. This the cycle. The same is the power. It was 100 mega units required. By the time that power plant and the lines are laid and made operational, the requirement become 150 megawatt. So we always keep on catching the things. Those are the you can't say it's ill planning, because we have seen many examples in Chinese cities, which are now ghost cities. They thought that rapid urbanization will populate these cities, but probably nobody went over there, and it became so. You do not know the exact trend unless until the sentiment analysis is done, where people are migrating, where they are trying to move. That's another complexity in itself. So, and more projects are complex. This is what I was trying to tell you. But with all these challenges, when we talk about rapidly changing the face of our country, rapidly changing the working environment, I mean, jumping from the developed country, underdeveloped country, or developing country tag, remove this tag and be a developed country, the solution lies in the digitalization. And the silver line, which I say always in my talks everywhere, is we are a very youthful country. If you see the demography, it is uh, between 18 to 55 years, the golden working time, uh, two-thirds of the population is there. Another silver bullet is majority of these young boys and the girls are better tech savvy than a generation back, be it a rural boy or a girl or people coming from a small town. They have some basic application knowledge about the technology. They know how to use the smartphones. They have understood something about IoT devices, and some they may not be very expert into use of it, but with some proper training they can be trained to used as a catalyst for the industrial revolution 4.0, and that's the focus area we should be discussing today. uh, Using these people and the lot of emerging technologies, the AI, the robotics, and the augmented reality, 3D printing, another very upcoming area I'll be discussing subsequently. There are advanced materials which are plenty of materials now. For example, say we recently used um, bituminous material, which itself was telling you how this is, it gives you, if it is put with an IoT sensor, it tells when this road is going to be peeling off, or you can potholes are going to develop. That's still under testing only. It's only in a pilot test we are doing, and the quantum computing is, of course, high. So if we if we say we are going digital, what actually does it mean? What digital? It's obviously embracing the technology, but then what X? What are the next things? One, we have to. Uh, just can I take a urgent call, Rajiv sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a second. Yeah. हाँ हाँ दीदी. Yes sir. हाँ हो रहा है सर. उनका वो अभी फाइनेंशियल बिल ओपन हो रहा है. नहीं कर दिया सर हमने, मेंबर सर से कल ही अप्रूवल है. Yeah, sorry, there was a awesome. So when we go ahead with this, so we have to revisit the project delivery. Let me tell you an interesting story. I'll be talking about the data lake, and then I had made a collaboration with IIT Delhi, who has set up a center of excellence uh, on this data lake to put the AI algorithm, AI tools to uh, dig deeper into this data and find out some tangible output for us for NHI as a whole. Very interesting things came. A majority of our theories or the timelines which we give are based on certain pre-assumed parameters, pre-assumed delivery mode, or the codes which we have copied from the mostly the Western countries. Some of them may not be applicable to us directly, but still we are following exactly the same thing. As a result, we say this project is delayed, or we give a lot of time for a project where it can be completed in half of the time. And we could prove it also. Many of the theories requires to be revisited. Many of the assumptions which we take at the beginning of starting a project or making a DPR, they requires to be revisited. That's the I'm sure in next couple of years or this decade, we may have our own set of different assumptions or the codes independent of the Western influences, as it's happening in the many economic policies too. And then there has to be better satisfaction to the customer. The time has changed. When we talk to the younger generation, of course, like you people or even younger to you, uh, if I say you book a house today and this will be delivered to you, my time is 36 months, and considering a year or two delay, 5 years from hence, I think people will laugh. When you are born with a mobile, you are having everything, a 5G connection likely to come. Things are available just on a click of a button. Then if and that's 5 year is also, I'm saying in an optimistic way. There are many projects in India which are languishing. The people who booked the houses in 2005, 6, 8, those projects are yet to be delivered. Probably most of you must be aware in Noida, Gurgaon, Mumbai, and many other places. 10 years has passed. The people who has booked it and in their 50s, now they have retired and nearing 70s. The house are yet to be delivered to them. So if you talk these to a youngster and say probably 10 years and now, he will say thank you, because expectations are very high. So this has to be developed in a I would say automated very quickly. That's the so the customer focus is mandatory now. Whatever you do, whatever project we do, now immediately the things comes in our mind that how the customer, how the end user going to take it, and how we are going to satisfy him. For example, fast tag program, Rajiv was mentioning. I'll be giving some glimpse to you how this has ease the movement of the people and where are we now. So that focus has to be there, not just spending into the infrastructure to create jobs only, but the end person, end aim is to satisfy the customers and interact with them. And that applies to all the industry across. uh, Here are some of the studies which we did some time back, but now this has been superseded by the new studies which I will tell you, in which we did in last 6 to 8 months, or a year latest. This we did 2 years back, when we tried to put use technology and see what actually we are saving, or is just hypothetical, like many other talks. But there is a saving. There is a cost saving of in a highway project we could achieve something around 16 to 18% that time, and there was a 25% saving in the time. So if I say in terms of time, if a highway I used to take to construct 2 years earlier, now I can reduce 6 months, and in 1.5 years this can be made ready. Similarly, the cost has also come down, and that's the use of technology. But the IR 4.0 technology has reduced it further. That I will be explaining you in the next topics. But do we have all these technologies are equally important to us? Probably not. If I talk about the construction industry, what I could find out as of now, subsequent at a later stage, may other technologies may come up and replace these. But the available technologies, the IR 4.0 digital technologies, which are very useful as of now, or which will be in next in this decade at least for 5 to 6 years, I believe, are the artificial intelligence, how the virtual design and the construction, the BIM and the virtual reality. And of course, a lot of people are using it. I was, um, I mean, last year, since last 10 months, we didn't visit any foreign country because of COVID, as you. But I was in February last year in China. They had started using the VR very aggressively. There was a building they were constructing. It was a 60-story building, and the drone was fitted with a camera, was actually inspecting that project. And in a command center, we were all sitting, and the command was also being given to them, that go near to this, show me that cracks, from there. And then it was converting at parallelly in command center, it was simulating it. It was converting into a virtual reality at the same time. That's the fascinating. And a person, this is so useful actually in this COVID time. We in NHI, we started using the drones because the flights were not allowed. So that learning which I saw in China, we actually practically used. So I mean, all of us are doing now virtual conferences. Similarly, this we started using the drone fitted with camera. They used to fly on the area and connect me. I mean, show us the ground pictures. And sitting here, our officers used to see the project, how it's actually and let me tell you, this was better than physically going there and checking the thing, because firstly you are having a top view. We come to know actually how much progress is happening. Then with the simulations you can see what are the issues are likely to come, and the advanced action of their mitigation were taken. Another technology which is making footprint is the 3D printing. If you, some of you might have visited Dubai or other places, they have already started making mass housing or the row housing using the 3D printing technology. The big cranes with the hoppers are there, and you keep on putting the raw material, and they are constructing the stereotype of houses, and it hardly takes 4 weeks to construct a house and furnish it. Interestingly, on the house which were, I mean, the building which I was witnessing in China was a 54-story building constructed in just 16 days. So that is available on YouTube also, you can search it. On 17th day, this building was occupied by the hotels and offices and others. So this is the pace a technology can give it to. And of course, intelligent construction material like self-healing concrete, the self-jointing bituminous material, these are already in use. They themselves, when there is a crack, it melts itself and fills those cracks. So that's already there. So that's the IoT part. But then we need to have an integrated platform where the decisions are also not taken manually, but the decisions can be taken by the engine driven by the AI and others. That's the data lake which we developed. After deploying a lot of IoT things, we integrated these inputs. We integrated it to an AI-based engine, and that's the basically providing the helping us in taking the correct decisions, and which are actually yielding the results. If we deep dive into the things how we are going to do it, I won't be taking much time over here, but just I would like to highlight some of the issues, because you can deep dive into the things even I mean more deeper what I have gone into. This can be a part of your curriculum too. For example, say if you say managing a project supply chain with digital procurement and logistics for efficient project management. Now, this is a very big thing. I mean, I can elaborate with an example. You can extrapolate it further. What happened during this COVID time when the lockdown was announced? Uh, you must have heard a lot of migrant laborers. They started going back to their villages in Bihar and the eastern part of UP and other places, moving on road by foot on the highways and reaching. That's the sad part of it. But once they reached their villages and home, after a few days, they were in search of job, because hardly they had money. They just walked down up to that. So once initial euphoria was over, they wanted some work, but they didn't wanted to go back to the original, because the pandemic was in full. But lockdown was relaxed after initial first phase. So our projects were to start. So government has permitted that we can start project with ensuring certain safety parameters, social distancing, and all those things. So, so our highway projects were to start. So what we did, we actually mapped in which area maximum laborers has migrated from Mumbai or other places, and which are the villages. We located on a GIS map that was easily known. We find out which is the projects next to the area where maximum these migrant laborers has come, and we'll be surprised to know we could almost absorb 80 to 90% of the migrant labor to the projects which were hardly 10 kilometers from the villages where they had gone. And our NHI projects started, functioning just a week or 10 days after the first lockdown phase was closed. So by, you can say 22nd or 20th April, I remember was the date when first lockdown was closed, and we were given some relaxation. That complete lockdown phase was over. And first of May, almost 65% of our projects in those areas were functioning. The people were there. We had put the, as per the norms, following the social distancing and other segregation and isolation, the work started. That is the, if you manage the logistic chain and the procurement and manpower properly, that's just an example. There can be many ways you can mark the queries, you can mark the bitumen plant, you can mark the other logistic chains, logistic areas, and how these things are going to come over. There are many multiple users can be. Similarly, another thing is the maximizing returns on the mega projects with digital. Is anything? Kunaraji, you want to say something?
That's fine. Please continue.
Okay, fine. So similarly, maximizing the return on the mega projects with digital through, that's obviously, I need not to elaborate it further. Then digital impact on the changing world, because better visibility of the project control that I will be explaining you. This is very, it has a, a very powerful impact on the project's control, because in a environment like data lake or something like this, you have complete visibility what is happening on the ground at the minutest level also, and that in fact makes the decision making very quick. Then the digital portfolio and transforming or commissioning certain thing, examining the challenge. But if I talk about how to do it, there are certain issues related to the digital transformation too. So I must discuss those things as well with you before going further. It's not the completely rosy picture that digitization is going to immediately turn around and do things. It takes time, and so some of the hurdles which I found, which top and discuss, I always discuss is techno dinosaurs. This is my favorite word I use, because in any of the organization or the corporates or the companies, even in the government, everywhere, the decision makers are the gray-haired people who has, they're not as a technology. A person who is, though they know the technology, but the apprehension with the digital technology, they're not as tech savvy as a youngster. So you, if you propose something, then always they will think it at the immediate ROI, how much this my digital investment is going to bring me. And probably many of you will find it difficult to justify immediately. And even if you project certain figure and show, yeah, this is going to bring so much ROI, probably with their experience of many years and considering their experience, they may not immediately agree to that as well, because they haven't seen that transformation, how quickly things are changing. and that ROI which you are projecting may be even underrated. The ROI, that return is going to give maybe much higher. I will just explain when I will be talking about the data lake. My projection was very humble, and when the things which people are watching on the ground are exorbitantly higher than that. So similar. So, but then here is your skill, how you project it, how much you are forceful about the technology you are proposing. In any of the industry, if you are in a manufacturing, there are technologies which can be used, but then is your management ready to invest that much, considering that they don't have that comfort with that technology? Is actually is a wasteful expenditure, or is actually going to give me that ROI which you are vouching? And then second thing is, which we faced is, there's uh, a big gap in the hype and reality. For example, some of the technologies were so hyped, but in reality they didn't. For example, I will say the RFID, radio frequency, RFID technology. This was hyped in 90s as a, it's a word changing technology. You wear a RFID ring and move anywhere, the identity will be known. You know, to carry any document, passport or something, that's everything is available here. But ladies and gentlemen, that didn't work. It's okay for some logistic things, like we are using in our FASTag. Uh, some logistic chains are using to monitor their containers and all, but it's not as hyped it was. So if your boss fears that this technology may not bring that result which you are vouching, he may be right in some way. So that careful selection has to be there. And third is the even that there's the even more challenging is the poor coordination, or the people available on ground to implement the decisions. Uh, Actually, you are in a middle or senior management, you are projecting certain things, getting approval from the boss, and you got this to be done. But who is actually implementing it? The implementing person is a person who is actually working on ground. He may not be that skilled as you are thinking him. So how he is going to take this technology, how he is going to implement it, that's a very big sway. That's a very big factor. I mean, I will just illustrate with an example. In a say, if you are making a building in a construction industry, if I am making a monumental building, this monumental building, let's say, seen by some of head of the organization or somebody, um, that he saw some good building, Capitol Hill type building in USA. He wants to make similar building in our country. So I mean, he once he returns back, he calls his architect and the engineering head. I want similar kind of building. These people with their experience of 30, 32 years might have seen this, or may they got have some imagination to look into. He will explain, they will understand something. Then these are the people not going to actually make. They will develop a design plan and some architectural drawings. Then the person who is going to execute is an contractor, and agency will come through a normal bidding process. This person got different priorities. He is basically an organization which runs on maximizing the profit and the ensuring that things are done in a way that his organization runs, and that's perfectly fine for him. So he will take those drawings, try to put the people with that different objective, that it should be run in a professional way. But the story doesn't end here. The person who is actually executing is also not those engineers of that company or the contractor. The people actually on ground are the semi-skilled, partly skilled or unskilled laborers, came from some Chhattisgarh or Bihar or Ranchi or someplace. The people who haven't gone around 200, beyond 200 kilometers of their places. So no, this man doesn't know about the Capitol Hill building, but he is making the pillars, he is making the foundation, he is making that building. Just imagine, what is the difference, the person who is actually doing and the person who has conceptualized it. So this is the this is a simple example, but when we talk about the more IR 4.0 technologies, this gap even widens. So that's the biggest thing. You have to skill them how you are going to do get the work done from them. Otherwise, the what the number one people thinks the techno that to majority of time that becomes correct, and then they next time they say no, you I mean this that was a hoax, so this is also going to be. So let me quickly tell you about some technology deployment at NHAI and what results we could achieve. I think I got another 10 minutes, so we'll in what I mean a few years back when I started the automation or modernization of NHAI, I divided the project life cycle into normal four buckets. The planning. So, what are the technologies available in planning which I can use? Uh, I segregated it, and out of many technologies, after deliberation, we decided that we are going to use these three technologies in planning. Then our DPR preparation or the how what are the technologies? Similarly, construction and operation and maintenance. This is the plan we decided that these technologies, or you can say bespoke technologies, we are going to use, or IoT sensors we are going to use. And then finally, this is the last year, the bottom you can see the data lake, which is the development once we implemented the top one. And that has transformed the things. Those that these technologies were already yielding good result to us. But then this data lake, when we came up with the actual IR 4.0 technology, this is how it transformed the things. Just a glimpse how GIS technology, we have made different layers, cadastral map, and all those vector data, and we plot our highways using many GIS layers. We mark the where are the toll plazas, where the example I was talking to you about migrant labor. This is how we map them on these things. And 3D modeling. This is the earlier all these things were done in a isolated way, or DPR consultant manually they used to come and discuss, or with the big Excel sheets and the details. But now we have mandated that they have to simulate and model it and show it on a computer how this highway or how this flyover is going to be actually, and just plot it on there. Then uh, another example I will just share. When we started doing that, laying the layer, I mean highway alignment on a GIS map, we came to know we could have avoided a lot of tunnels and the bridges, or we could have constructed a tunnel or bridge and avoided a long unnecessarily derouting distance. So those cost as well as time analysis can be done using the software in a more accurate way, giving us the priority. And then finally, the data lake. So why we call it a data lake? It's not structured data, but we are storing structured as well as unstructured. The complete, it's a perfect breeding ground for AI or ML algorithms to run. What this has provided us, complete all C's are there: collaboration, communication, correspondence, control, everything, correct designing, and timely interference checks. Complete this data lake has provided us all the C's of project management. How we are doing? All our contractor, consultant, everybody is linked to a data lake. If a contractor seeks some information, he has to simply log into data lake. The role-based access is given to them. He writes it over it. It goes to immediately the consultant or the engineer. They communicate on the data lake only. If they require some expert opinion, they refer it to the expert through this portal only, and again communicate back. The entire thing is tracked by us like this. Say how much time it took, how how much time it took to send the document, how much time an engineer took, how much time a safety consultant took, and finally, what is the where the file is, where the approval is. So we are creating you can say a digital twin. What is on a computer, how this project should run, and what is physically it is happening. And this is a 5D BIM where apart from the three normal dimensions of the length, breadth, and height, we are having added a fourth dimension, that is cost, and fifth dimension is the time. So you keep on moving, checking all the dimensions of a actual project which is happening on ground with in a virtual world on your simulated or screens. And at any time you can see I'm running a cost overrun or time is going to go up. And that's, gentlemen, ladies, is creating a lot of benefits to the NHAI. What are those benefits? I'll be explaining you again. Another thing in O&M we did is the FASTag. That's the third thing which has changed the landscape is the digital road asset management. The entire highway land, the assets which we create, now we have a digital inventory. All inspection records are available in data lake. In this way we are doing now highway rating, toll plaza rating, GPS based tracking of ambulance and recovery vehicles. If you are in stress, just call 1033. Helpline will immediately send the location to administrator, and from toll plaza or the highway administrator, and nearest ambulance or the recovery vehicle will start reaching to the site. And this can be seen on a mobile app, how far this vehicle is there. So all these digitization which I am talking has actually shown a lot of result. If I say about the fast track, as Kanaraji was initially saying, this has gone up above 80% now. On last 31st of February, we hit this as a 90%, 89.52 crore daily collection was through FASTag on first of February out of 100. So touching almost. So this 100 crore is the toll collection we have almost every day. 18 more than now 80% is using FASTag. This has the number of transactions are done through FASTag are over 55 lakhs daily, and the time which used to be 7 to 8 minutes, this was the average time. At plaza it used to be 20 minutes, and at some places 2 to 3 minutes average was this, but now it has come down to less than 2 minutes, saving at least 4 to 5 minutes for citizens. And that 4 to 5 minutes saving in idling of the vehicles had led to a lot of saving in the fuel, and that is estimated more than 20,000 crore in a year. Similarly, the reduction in carbon emission by over 5 lakh ton per month. And of course, this has led to a lot of correction in the leakages and other thing. The transparency has increased the toll revenue as it is. The data lake has created another record. Say we made 534 kilometer highways in just 1 week. I was mentioning you from 8th to 15th January. Last week also, this was approximately 500 kilometer, 485 or something. So this is the impact of having a completely digital organization backed up with the decision makers. Our record, even during COVID, this is a figure in July. I'm talking to you. I just wanted to show you this figure of July, August, because that was the peak time of the COVID. The lockdowns were there. Many states were still reeling under the lockdown. That time also we had broken our own record of 3 years. When most of the organizations were working from home, or they have not even started their working, many of the organizations or corporates, but we being government POC, still we were breaking our own record. So this was being done just by the digitization. That's the impact of digitization. Thank you very much, and I'm open to the questions if you have, please.
Please ask your questions. I think somebody has asked a question in chat mode.
Yes, I can see Pritesh Pramod has written digital is also a good tool. Yeah, I agree. And digital twin, I say digital twin is a based on the digital data, IoT sensors, and the data lake. Through simulations, we create exactly twin.
Okay.
How this project is on ground, how it's going to be, and this being practiced in your manufacturing much more than what I'm talking here.
Okay, actually, I want to know how much it is accurate in terms of results. So comparing with actual stage and pre-design stage.
You are talking about digital twin.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah. See, if you talk in terms of the accuracy of the, say, timeline or the cost estimates, I will say in timelines, it's fairly accurate. You come to know when some things are going to be delayed and how much time is going to take with this delay or with this delay in the decision. It's very accurate. But cost, of course, there are issues as of now because we are not at fully, have the complete data from the ground as it should be. For example, say if you are constructing something, if it is in a closed environment, say if it is a plant or a factory man being environment, probably you know the uncertainties in a better way. But in an open environment, the uncertainty, the risk factor is very high. So cost, not very accurate, but yes, with the time parameter, it is very, very fairly accurate.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
You can ask your questions. There's no problem.
Please.
I can see that there are two questions which are on, chat mode, but you can ask them.
Very good question. Prakash has asked, what are the areas a startup should focus? Absolutely. This is a brilliant question, in fact. I love to answer this. There is huge opportunities for the startups, I must say. The digitization has opened, in fact, a Pandora box of opportunities for the startups. Those who are having good knowledge about the technology, or they can understand use of technology in any of the sector which they like. If you are related to infra, which is my focus area, I can say, there is probably dearth of people who can. So you will be having some idea. Please do it immediately. Try to find out some good IR technology which you can use. Find out its use case in the. Just grab any problem of construction industry. Try to develop how you can satisfy the end customer. The customers can be many. It can be the organizations who are in the industry. It can be the operation and maintenance company. For example, recently a startup has made some IoT devices with an app which is monitoring the maintenance of DG sets in multiplex, multi-story buildings in societies. And that startup, I think their turnover has gone above 50 CR in just 1.5 years. Because this thing is doing it is, and it's managed by only 4 or 5 people, as I believe, because they met me some time back. They had put a sensor into a DG set in some of the societies in Delhi, and then link it to a mobile app. The moment the DG set, the oil is below threshold, it sends a SMS to the RWA, the authorities, that here is the issue. It sends the, if it is due for servicing, it sends it. And that's the simplest thing. It's just a application of technology in a professional and innovative way. The big opportunity, yes. Anything you can find, you can focus any problem of a startup here. Infra areas.
Yeah.
Somebody
Good
has
evening,
asked which
Akhilesh.
model. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Can I ask a slightly technical question about the platform? Is that okay?
Please.
So, for the IoT sensor data, which is probably a streaming data,
Hmm.
are you collecting using a Kafka stream and then sending it to a metadata-based Elasticsearch and then some kind of a Tableau for your dashboarding and then taking a decisions tree from the Tableau, something like that is your stack? And are you using a Cloudera or a Snowflake kind of a
No.
commercially available HDFS, or is the HDFS built by IIT Delhi? And one more thing before I conclude, congratulations. I don't know, this is just out of the world. I never knew these things can be used in such a grand scale. This is precisely what I do for a living. So, and this is the first time I've seen such a use case being implemented. We've done Dubai Metro, which was one of our classic, one of the best HDFS implementation. I used to be part of Cloudera's pre-sales initiative. So congratulations. I think commendable. I don't know India could do this, but this is just beyond what we have seen in the rest of the planet, including integration of AutoCAD and 3D Revit digital twin into the system.
Correct.
Is it really working is my second question. If so thank you, sir. Thanks again. We will be in touch. I will come back to you for certain guidance for that.
So thank you very much. Yeah, it's actually working, and we can discuss the technical details in more. So we are using same what you were saying, HDFS, and that's the IIT Delhi is also working on that only, and we are getting complete using the IoT sensors, the data. We have integrated those AutoCAD and other things. That's how we created the digital twin. You are aware of that.
And streaming data is real time, is it? You're getting it from the
Yeah,
Kafka stream?
yeah, it's a real time. It's a real time, absolutely.
I see. Okay. Ingestion. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
There is an interesting question. I think it has been asked is about how plastics are going to be used in the national highways construction. Any thoughts on that?
It's already under use. We have, in fact, there is a policy which we have mandated use of plastic in highways. I mean, I don't know exactly how much percentage it is there, but it's definitely, I think, 10 to 15% of the highway, aggregates has to be made from the plastic. So many plastic industries or the waste material are now being converted using these machines into plastic aggregates. And that is what we are using. We are mixing it with the bitumen, laying it like any normal aggregates which we are using. It's a very much in recently, in fact, in Shimla, one particular section of highway was made of completely plastic waste only.
Sir, for this huge program of this infrastructure, the raw materials, as you said, the sand and other materials will be very challenging and problematic. What is the policy of conservation of these materials, sustainable materials we have to take up? Otherwise, we will face a lot of problems in the material, especially sand, water, and all those raw materials which we need in construction industry. Is there any long-term strategy or plan regarding these things, construction materials? All in technology, we are getting some advancement, but the resources are limited. Yes, we have to conserve or we have to judicially use these materials. How we are planning it? What is the strategy of this, sir? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, fully agree. See, there are two things. One, when you use a technology that optimizes the use, right? If you are without technology, if you are bringing say 1,000 cubic meter of aggregate, probably when you actually use a technology, use the GIS, use the optimization, you come to know probably you don't require that much. 830 is good enough. So you are saving 170 cubic meters of the bitumen aggregate at a place. Similarly, when you go further granules and aggregate it, a lot of wastage which takes place can be minimized. That's the big use of technology in reducing the optimizing the consumption. Second is the more advanced material which you have probably trying to hint that plastic waste and all. Obviously, we have to use more and more recycled things. The circular economy of materials has to be there. When when you are breaking some house, the people are shifting from villages to the urban area, and in urban area, when you are making house, so the places which are now deserted, use those materials, make a circular economy of these. That's possible only through technology, and use those material instead of digging a river for the sand or wasting our own planet. Damaging the planet. Those are the area. And thirdly, hypothetically, let's if we finish with our things, by the time we'll be getting something from Mars and the moon also.
Yeah, I think, Akhilesh, the way you have spoken, there are a lot of questions which can come, but again, what happens is that we have a limited time.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to close now. Okay, people, I will say one thing. Akhilesh is a very close friend, and the way he has been working at NHAI has made us proud of this organization. I mean, we always used to think that government organizations are the most lethargic. He and his team has changed the way things work. It's something like, you remember those State Bank of India and other public sector banks, when you used to go to uh, the teller had, was interested in everything else other than paying you, and you kept waiting. But things changed in SBI and others with digitalization. And the same way, I think NHAI has really, really changed, has metamorphosed from a caterpillar, I would say, into a very great organization. So what I will say, it was absolutely, Paul, I agree with you. It was a brilliant presentation. I mean, he has covered the entire gamut of things. What is digitalization all about? How, how do you, I mean, just imagine a data lake is nothing but a digital twin. I mean, that thought was awesome. Then he talked about hurdles in adoption of digital technology. He talked how technology can be used in planning, preparation, construction, operations, and the direct impact of digitalization. But I think the what one statement, as far as I am concerned, which took the cake, was that he said that digitalization is all about embracing the customer better. I mean, that is the end all. If the customer is satisfied, your organization has a meaning. That organization has served its purpose. I think it has been a very brilliant presentation, Akhilesh, and I can see the number of responses that I am receiving. You opened the mind of people. Like I said, thinking that that data lake is nothing but a digital twin. It's a great thought, and we are hopeful that other PSUs and others will follow the path which NHAI has taken, and it will transform the way our country survives and lives and so on. I mean, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, I'll say one thing. The very fact that the GST has got implemented is because, the cross-state movement on the national highways has been simplified. And that happens because of technology. It's what we say is that it is like a rising tide. Not just one thing goes up. It is when the tide goes up, all the boats go up. And I'm sure, Akhilesh, the way you are uh, going ahead, the future of our country is very bright. And if organizations like NHAI can change the infrastructure to a disruptive level, we have a golden period ahead of us. So Akhilesh, thank you very much. And
Thank
it
you
has
very
been a
much, sir.
pleasure interacting with you. And it
Thank
has
you,
been
sir. It's
very
all
helpful.
learning from ISB and you people only. So thanks
Yeah.
to Alma Mater, ISB, and thanks. And it's very encouraging and refreshing to interact with the young people here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for patient hearing.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure, Akhilesh. Okay, bye. Thank you. Have a great day ahead.
Good evening, sir. Bye.
Good evening.